It's a system where you construct in corporate life, which essentially positions you to discharge your extant obligations to your regulatory bodies, whether it be across the capital markets, whether it be financial services, etc. And it's relevant from the conceptualization stage of a business to execution and the operationalization life cycle of the business. It comes to play from thinking about the kind of entity you incorporate in line with the proposed objects of a business and the objectives of the promoters, the extent of a share capital, regulatory capital, which will be informed by things like whether there's foreign participation or otherwise, and the sector-specific regulations that might apply to your area, and most crucially, the actual license to actually discharge the business you want to discharge. That's just speaking to regulatory compliance in general. Moving to second thrust of your question, which is regulatory change. Essentially, regulators are always constantly looking to react to business and operating environment to ensure that the environment is operational and how the regulatees is relevant to changes in and innovation in the market. CBN, for example, will be concerned on an ongoing basis with notions like systemic risk, financial stability, inflation, while a regulatory entity like the SEC will be concerned with notions like investor protection, market integrity, and things of that nature. It's these concepts within the relevant regulatory space that will inform the kind of regulatory change we see. And regulatory change is often driven by the introduction of new laws and regulations or the amendments of existing laws and regulations. Using the banking space as an example again, we know that the CBN recently issued a circular pertaining to capital requirements for deposit money banks in Nigeria, which they have to essentially abide by 2026, which means that in the interim, in fact, we're seeing now a lot of equity capital raise activity by some of the deposit money banks in the country. Subsequently, we're probably going to see some M&A play amongst the tier 2 banks. The second is reacting to innovation in the crypto space. They recently issued a regulatory incubation program, which is designed to just deal with VASPs and DISPs in the crypto space. Against the backdrop of all these changes is essentially the core of regulatory compliance and its exact function of compliance officers. Again, it's probably one of the things that entities like Regfyl are built to solve. So to the heart of the question as to how to keep abreast of regulatory changes, essentially a number of things that compliance officers can do. I think the first step I would point to would be just ensuring that you're engaging with competent outside counsel as a starting point. And when I say competent outside counsel, I also use this term to extend to specialist compliance support as well. The primary rationale here would just be that when you're dealing with people that are competent, they're able to help you discharge your obligations in an effective manner. And these people, as part of their capability, will often have extensive, long-standing relationships with regulators such as the SEC, the CBN, FRS, ETRCN, and they'll often have first-hand information as to changes in the regulatory environment. This will essentially help keep you informed, help keep you tapped in, so you know what's coming, you posture well to react, and no one's caught flat-footed. So that'll be the first recommendation I make. The second recommendation I would make would be just implementing a robust and comprehensive regulatory engagement program. So what this entails essentially would be that as a compliance professional within any organization, you should have a dashboard where you dimension the entire universe of your regulatory stakeholders, and you're touching base with them from time to time with relevant functions, whether it be SEC, whether it be FRC, whether it be CBN, and so you can stay tapped in, you can stay informed, you know what's going on. In addition to this, most regulatory agencies in Nigeria and outside would often engage with their regulatees regularly. It's crucial that compliance professionals within companies stay involved in organizations like this and stay active at fora like this. So the SEC, for example, does something called the CMC on a quarterly basis. They engage with the entire universe of their regulatees. Clearly, compliance professionals should stay tapped into fora like that. The CBN2 does things like that. And very recently at the 2024 spring IMF meetings, the CBN particularly engaged with IMTOs just to hold conversations as to how they could discharge some of the issues in the foreign currency markets. Forums and stakeholder sessions like that, also compliance officers and organizations should stay involved so they can stay tapped in, know what's going on, and just stay in front of things. You need to stay active so you know what's going on and you can react accordingly. A third point that I would allude to would just be monitoring the relevant dissemination channels that regulatory agencies maintain. So oftentimes the SEC, CBN, FIRS, everyone, every agency tends to issue exposure drafts for their circulars and their guidelines and ask for comments. It's crucial that compliance officials within organizations stay tapped in, they respond in a robust manner. Oftentimes, you need to help practicalize the consequence of regulations for the regulated entities so that they can calibrate them accordingly. This is a good one as well. So obviously, monitor the platforms, monitor social media handles, and so you can react accordingly. In addition to these three things I've mentioned, the other practical things, just listening to podcasts, keeping abreast of what's going on in the regulatory environment locally and internationally, subscribing to newsletters of reputable law firms like Anybody, attending conferences and webinars such as this, deploying RegTech solutions, and just general legislative tracking. So as I said earlier, just staying abreast of what's going on locally and internationally, because regulators in Nigeria and outside tend to take a comparative approach to regulating their regulated spheres. So oftentimes when you see changes occurring in the US or the UK, for example, as we've seen in the crypto space, we're seeing those changes ripple and mirror across our jurisdiction as well. Just bringing it all together, regulatory compliance is a critical function within any regulated entity, and the key thing to staying abreast of this is just staying tapped in, deliberately